Sorry about that. Didn't mean to accidentally close that file down. Sorry about that. Just keep on going like nothing happened. Anyway, get right there. Let's say this object is 0.5 thick. And we have this here and this here. Okay. Now, I'll draw a little bit more. And I'm not going to get super detailed, but let's say I have, let me switch to 0. Let's say I have these different views of the object shown. And I'll draw a quick top view version of it. 0.5 back across. There we go. Okay, so let's say I have the top, front, and right side views of the object. The only thing I don't have is like hidden lines at this point. And I want to create a print that shows all this information. Well, no big deal in most cases. You can just, I'll move this little piece of text down a little bit. I'll add in a viewport. Viewport, single, there we go, click there, and you'll notice that it shows all three. Now, if it doesn't show all three, you can make manipulations. For example, alright, I'm going to go ahead and switch this to the con layer so I can make the distinction. If you have a lot of drawings on your model space, it's going to extend out to show them all, which may not be good for you. And so now with that in mind, I'm going to introduce the concept of activating the viewport and manipulating it. For example, let's say that I drew a circle out here in space, just randomly. All right. Now when I create a new viewport, it's going to show that circle in there, which I don't really need. See it? I don't need that circle in here. A couple options. I can take the viewport, stretch it in some, and get it away from it, or I can do this. Double click and activate the viewport. Now once it's activated, you can pan, zoom in, zoom out, just like you can in model space. In fact, you are basically activating model space within the window. And in fact, if I draw anything now, it shows up in model space. See, this is no longer, it's showing up here as well. It's not just paper space. So this is a tricky thing to do. Sometimes you don't really want to do this very often, but it is handy when you need it, because I can pan it around and zoom it in, zoom it out. Only notice that when I do that, it throws your scale off completely, and you have to reset your viewport scale. Alright? Now, once I have just the area that I want isolated, I can put it to about right there. Deactivate by double-clicking outside the box. Notice that activating is dark box, deactivating outside is thin line. And I can grab my grips and pull it in some. But then I have to come back and reset my scale. I'm going to set it to 1 to 2. It's kind of outside it, so I'll pull that out there. So right now I have, switch that to con, I have the top, the front, and the right side view showing on my print, and they're all to a scale of 1 to 2, which is great. Now I have that option, or I can do this. I can make one viewport for each object, and I can, for example, just pick the front view here, and I'll kind of move the viewport in pretty close to its edges. Okay, and I'm going to copy this viewport, one over and one above. And all I have to do now is click on the viewport and stretch it out till I see the side view, and then resize my viewport accordingly. Now you'll notice that I'm keeping myself perfectly in line with what I'm working with. I'm not trying to, whoops. When that does happen, you double click on a line, particularly you see this little highlighted thing, just come down here in this area right here, click on this button, and it takes you back. It usually happens if you click once and then try to grab a blue grip too fast. Anyway, I'm going to stretch this viewport up, show the top, stretch that viewport in to match it, stretch this back down, and then I'm going to use the move command to move both these viewports back in position. So what I've done is create a viewport for each particular view. This is handy if you draw your model space stuff too far apart. Like instead of drawing this object here, I drew it way out here. That would be the case to use this technique. Most things I'll recommend to you is if you know you're going to do a print of a problem, keep your top, front, right side views in fairly close together. Okay? Now, I've resized the viewports. You will know, you can click on them all and check to make sure they're still set to 1 to 2 scale, and you have it. If you do get off by mistake, it's a simple matter. Like for example, let's say I made a mistake and I moved this over here, and I'm like, ah, dang it. Well, to fix it, I'll zoom in here, click on this point of the object, doesn't really matter, or even this point over here, doesn't matter, and I'll create a little line, and then I will simply move this viewport by that corner there and line it up. I can delete that line back off, and they're aligned. So that's how you can reestablish alignment if you get off. A couple of things always to check for, though, is when you're getting close to finishing up, make sure that all 3 of them have the same viewport scale, or the whole process is useless. So once that's done, you can do a print preview, check it out, top, front, right side view, everything is good. I can hit print and create the file. So that's what you can do for multiple views of the same part. And typically, as you get in more advanced classes, that's what we do. We'll have a tab for each part across the bottom, and you'll have 3 views and additional information. We may also include a little title block over in this corner here. Something that looks like, I don't know, just a simple box with some letters in it. Or I may just ask for your information. I may just say, put some text over here with your name, date, class, etc., to a specified height. Okay? Alright. Let's talk about the effect of hidden lines and center lines. I'm going to go in and I'm going to manipulate this object a little bit. I'm going to take away these random ellipses here, and I'm going to just put in one single circle right there. Alright? Because the circle's here, and because this notch is here, this square hole, we're going to have to add in hidden lines and center lines. Now I'm not going to do all of them, I'm just going to do a couple examples. Well, using some of the techniques we've discussed, I can draw a line across here, draw a line across here, and I need to put a hidden line in right there. So I'll go and create a layer for hidden lines and center lines. I'll create 2. I'll call this one, I'll rename it to hid. Right click, rename layer, hid, and right click, okay, rename, call this one SID. And we'll delete that one back off. Alright, so I got SID and hid. Make their colors different. SID will be blue. Don't know why SID is. Alright, and I need to change them. I need to load up some center lines and hidden lines. So there's a hidden. In fact, I can just hit Control A and load them all up. I'll say there's SID is center, hid is hidden. So I've got my layers created for my lines, and I want to draw a hidden line right here. Oops, didn't mean to hit the button. Draw a hidden line right here. From this point to this point, and from this point to this point. Delete that line off. So there's a hidden line. Create the same thing here. In this case, I can just grab this. Now, I'm not going to do this in the top view just because I'm just giving an example. I'm just going to demonstrate it in one view, and you can figure out the rest for the others. And of course, I'm going to draw a center line associated with these objects as well, using a couple of quick techniques. And get rid of that, delete that, and delete those, and change this to a center line. Now you'll notice that center line didn't show up real well. It probably also won't show up real well here, which is exactly what I want to happen for us to learn something new. Okay, good. Not showing up at all. Now, we have learned that if you want to make a change to line type scale, like for example, this is okay. But let's just say for kicks and giggles, we need to adjust this center line here, or actually the hidden lines and center lines. I'm going to right click and hit select the objects, right click, hit properties, and I'm going to adjust their line type scale. Let's say 0.5. Yep, that fixed it. See it? And let's say that I'm going to change the hidden lines as well to a little bit lighter lines type scale, 0.75, to get a few more breaks in them. Yeah, that didn't turn out too well. And about 0.5. There we go. Looks a little bit better. So anyway, it looks good in Monospace. Everything's great. It's awesome. Layout. Go to Paperspace. I may not have the results I want. See how it's a little bit different? And thus we have a lesson. Sometimes when you know you're going to print, it's more important to make it look good in Paperspace than it is in Monospace. Observe. I'm going to actually double click and activate this one. I'm going to select these lines and notice that I'm not going to do any zooming because if the moment I do some zooming, it's going to screw up the scale and I don't want to do that. I'm going to change the line type scales back to 1 and see what happens. No good. In this case, I need to make some more changes. I need to make more drastic changes. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to go smaller, 0.25. Deactivate. Notice I deactivated before I start zooming in. That looks a lot better. Same thing here. I'm going to go activate this, select the two lines I want to change, take the line type scale down just a little bit, deactivate, check it out, looks good. Hit print preview, and that looks excellent. Just excellent. Alright? So, lesson of that to take away from this is, don't worry about getting your line types looking just right in Monospace. Set them up on different layers and get that correct, but then actually do your adjusting in Paperspace if it's not showing up well. That is the crucial part, Paperspace, because that's what you'll be graded on once you start doing this more often. Because in more advanced classes, we don't worry about so much the Monospace. We worry about your final product in Paperspace. So this is where you make adjustments. Just watch out. Don't zoom or pan or anything when you have a viewport active. That's a big no-no. Okay? Now we have one more adjustment to kind of really worry about, and that is all done in the layers. So we'll take a look at those real fast. Now in the layers, we have to watch out for a couple things. For one thing, there's this little thing called line type scale. Alright? I'm sorry, line weight. I didn't mean line type scale. What it basically means is that some objects on a drawing are going to be thick lines and some are going to be thin. For example, on this part here, thick lines would be necessary for the outside perimeter of the object and the circle. Thinner lines would be for the hidden lines and center lines and lighter weight objects. So what we need to do is make some setting changes so that this prints out with dark lines on the border and the solid and the surface lines. Dark line here, lightweight line here, lightweight line here, and here. It's a very simple approach. The fact that we created different layers for the center lines and hidden lines means we can change their line weight very easily. Notice this category right here. They're all set to default. Now this is different for different printers. You know, for example, your printer may respond to a different line weight different than another printer. But for example, if I set the 0 layer to a line weight of, let's say, 30, and that's a good value, the 0 layer being your surface lines, 30 is a good value for them, and your center lines to, let's say, a value of 13, there should be a significant visual difference. And I also change my hidden lines to 13. Now, do I need to change the line weight thickness of con layer? Absolutely not, because it's not going to show anyway, so it doesn't matter. So 30 on the solid lines, lightweight values for hidden lines and center lines. I'm going to rename SID because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why I thought SID would work. Rename layer to Cent. There we go. Makes more sense. Anyway, now I could go all the way down to 0 line weight. Now you would think that it means it won't print off, but it will actually just be its absolute lowest value. We usually use that for hatching and other kind of things, which we'll talk about later. Okay, so 30 for surface continuous lines, 13 for center lines and hidden lines. Okay, now you're not going to see a difference in this view, but you should be able to see a difference in the plot preview. Look at that. See when I zoom in, see how thick the 0 line layer is? There's a version of it. Here's another version. See how thick this is versus how thin this is. So if I actually print this off, this is what I'm going to get. A thin line here that looks a little bit lighter and a thicker line for surfaces. And that is crucial. It helps the viewer of the print to distinguish one line from the other. Now it's not hard in a drawing like this, but when you get into complex stuff, you're going to need that kind of visibility. Okay? So Layers. Change your center lines and hidden lines to a lighter value. Change your 0 layer or all continuous lines to a heavier value. 0.3 or perhaps 0.35. That works good. Don't go up to 0.50 because that's just too thick. Okay? And then just check out your plot preview. Zoom in and kind of see what the difference is. You should be able to clearly tell a difference in your plot preview and denote that before you ever hit the print button. Once that's done, you've actually got your line weights ready. You've got your line types ready. It looks good. You hit print. You tell it OK. We'll call this one Eric 2 again. So they're really dealing off. And hit save. It's good to go. There it is. We open it up. And sure enough, if I zoom in, I get the exact same result. And if I were to print this off on a printer, like if I just went up here and just hit the print button, I could print this off on whatever printers are available, and it'll come right out of the printer. So that's the advantage of having electronic prints versus actual hard copies, is you can reprint these whenever you need them. And that's real cool. Another advantage is if you actually use the design review program is that you have the ability to do markups on prints, which is how we'll grade some of your stuff later on. Okay? So, what you need to do now is go back through all these additional steps. Add in some center lines and hidden lines to your prints. Set up multiple views of your prints, top, front, and right side. It doesn't really matter. You can use any part, for example. Set them all to the correct scale. Make sure they're all aligned with each other. Make sure all your line weights are such that continuous lines are thick, hidden lines and hidden lines are thin. Make sure everything's set to a good scale, and try printing off. Okay? Well, that's pretty much the basics and all the necessities associated with printing and layouts, and you'll have assignment based off this. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.